Hi everyone, welcome to the Publishing Format Show. I'm here with Dawn Greenfield, who is the writer of 5 book series, 7 non-fiction books, 15 screenplays, and 52 themed notebooks. So she's got quite a lot going on. Thank you for joining us, Dawn.
Thanks, it's great to be here.
Oh, thank you. So tell me, did you always want to be a writer?
Well, it didn't come about until like the late 70s. And basically it just was one of those things where a story popped into my head while I was driving to work, which was a very long commute.
Yeah.
So it grew from there.
Can you remember what your first series was? Your first story was, sorry.
It was a science fiction fantasy story. Back then it was called Second Chance. And it took me from 79 until 1984 to get the first draft finished because I literally didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah.
And then from there, it went through 30 years of rewrites.
Right.
And I mean, it was very painful, but like I said, I didn't know what I was doing. And in the 80s, I found a fabulous critique group, and they really helped me along quite a bit. And that's something that I always tell writers, when you're starting off, or even if you've written, some books, find a really good critique group, because a lot of times they'll have a really hardcore editor in that group, and it'll save you a whole heck of a lot of headaches. So that story is now called Prophecy of Thal. It went through like three title changes, but that's what it's called now.
And that book is now out. So you released it when did you release it?
Oh gosh, let's see. Prophecy of Thal.
It's about 30 years, didn't you?
2017.
Right, okay. So yeah, literally 28 years from
Yeah.
That's amazing. So with the critique group that you had, what did you get out of that?
Oh gosh. So back in the 80s, this is when, this is really before cell phones and everything else. I mean, so everybody brought 10 pages to the group and you read them out loud, and then people gave you notes. So to me, that's the worst way to go about, you want to bring copies for everybody so they can write, they can read it and write it down, and then you get everybody's notes. So they catch, a lot of things, a lot of gaps that you're missing, editorial, grammar, the whole bit. And, your story needs, better plotting, or you need, your character development. I mean, a critique group is worth its weight in gold. It really is.
Yeah. So can you remember any of the sort of early experiences you had that led you to wanting to be a writer?
I've always, even as a small child, I grew up on a farm, and I've always had a very wild imagination. And the difference between me and a lot of other people is I wrote things down, and I allowed myself to daydream, and I allowed myself to, let my imagination grow, and some people just, they just think, oh, I'll never tell anybody about that, but if you do tell somebody about that, it could really turn into a fabulous story,
Yeah. Amazing. So the series that we were talking about just now, the Thal series. So tell me a bit about that series. Like, what inspired you to write that series? Give us a bit of background of what it's about.
Well, that was the first book that I wrote, and like I said, I had a very long commute to work, and it was over this, well, let's see, in Houston, over Addicks Dam, which was all forested on both sides of the street back then. It's no longer like that, but so I don't know, it's just really kind of strange how it started. I just had this one daydream pop into my head, and then I built on it every day, and then it came to the point where I started writing to work with a yellow line tablet on the passenger seat with a pen. And anytime I stopped, I would jot down notes. And
Right.
it grew, it grew into 400 and some odd pages.
You never considered doing like dictation or anything like that?
Back then, no. Back in the early 80s, well, actually, I started in 79. So back then, there wasn't really a lot of things to think about, other than writing it down.
Yeah. So what's that series about?
So that is about a 17-year-old girl who is at the shopping mall with her father and her two brothers, and a cloud of fog comes down, and when it moves back, she's gone. So she is taken into a parallel world, and it's a very exotic parallel world with creatures and creature people. And to back up a little bit, so when she was 12, she was in a terrible car crash that claimed her mother's life, and she was in a Delane, my main character, was in a coma for 8 months. And when she came out of that coma, she was screaming, and then she had nightmares for months afterwards about these four individuals. One was a dark-haired young man about her age. The other one was this huge alligator type monster, bipedal, and a black robot that was very menacing. And then the last was a white furred creature that was, let's say, benevolent. And so when she goes into that fog, that's where she lands up. And, she discovers the white creatures discover her. And then the alligator guy, he's a plodal, he's a commander in the plodal army. He attacks them. And so, I mean, everything was laid out. She already knew about these things, and now she's living these things. So
Yeah.
it's done quite well in competitions. And this is the book that I had taken just part of the first chapter and adapted it into a TV series, and it's won like 5 different awards. I just got the latest award on Friday, and I'm hoping that moves up the list.
Yeah. So when you say you've adapted it for TV series, you've written a script, but it hasn't gone like being filmed or anything like that yet.
No, I've had 2 of my scripts optioned, but they were never filmed. I mean, it's just one of those things. There's, it's hard for producers to line up money, and if they don't, then poof,
Yeah.
there goes your hopes.
Was it always? It sounds like your book is kind of a cross between sci-fi and fantasy together. Was that always a genre that you wanted to write in?
Yeah, I mean, because that goes along with my wild imagination, so it worked real well.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, the first draft of that thing, my character cried through 85% of it. Until I came across my critique group. It's like I didn't realize how stupid that was. Because when you don't know how to write, then you just have all these things that you have to learn.
Yeah. And one of those things is don't have your character crying the entire time.
Yeah, give her, give her some backbone.
Yeah.
It took, like I said, 28 years to 30 years to, get that straightened out.
Yeah. And those first books, have they been self-published or did you get a publisher?
No, I have my own company, Artistic Origins, which used to be my technical writing company for 34 years. And then when I left the technical writing world, writing manuals for oil and gas and computers and all that. So then I transitioned Artistic Origins into my publishing company.
Yeah.
And, it's just like, I tried getting an editor, and I tried getting a publisher back in the 80s, and I gave myself, X amount of time to accomplish that. And when that didn't happen, that's when I decided, I just need to form my own company.
Yeah.
And I learned a lot of that, the publishing industry, from my first technical writing job at Compact Computer. So it was, one of those step-by-step things. And I've published a lot of books by now, not just mine, but I publish other people's books as well.
Right. We'll come on to that. I want to speak to you about your artistic origins, but just had a few more questions about your books first, because you wrote them all obviously yourself, but you've self-published through your own sort of company. Now, what approach did you take to marketing those books? Because I know they're on Amazon, and that's one step, but what did you actually do to try and get those first few sales?
It's really difficult. Marketing is not my forte. So it's like I stumble through it like a lot of other authors. I do a lot of different campaigns through different companies. Some of them are free, some of them are paid for. It's like a story origin. You can build up
Yes.
your mailing list.
Yeah.
That's very invaluable. And then there are other companies that I use. You have to really look at every option or every offer that you get to help you get the books out there, because some of them are big ripoffs. And you know if you're paying someone, if you're paying a company to help you get the word out, you want to make sure that they've got a great mailing list, and that you know somebody's actually going to see it. I've spent several years just wandering around in the dark,
Yeah.
not knowing what I was doing, and putting my trust and money into the wrong hands. And so you
Have
just
you
learn.
have you used any of the book promotion tools, like free Booksy or anything like that?
Say that one more time.
Have you used any of the free book promotion tools like free Booksy or any of
Oh,
those sort of
yes.
tools?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Very good. They are very
Yes.
good.
I
They really
interviewed
do get the word out.
I interviewed Mike from Free Booksy a couple of weeks ago, so that show's actually live. But it's a really good tool to use, because if you can get the first sale, especially if you've got a series like you do, then the following sales can often come on because people want to hear what happens with the characters and read a bit
Right.
more into it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
If you've done your work on that book and you've got a series, they're gonna want to see what's next.
yeah. And have you found that once people read the first book, they go on to read the whole series?
The bad thing is that you don't know who's buying your books. You hope that people are buying, once they've read the first one, that they're buying, the next one and the next one. But, nobody lets you know,
Yeah,
who's buying the books, which is, I think it's wrong.
I guess you can see, if you look at the number of sales for the first book in the series compared to like the books later on in the series, you can see if those people are
Oh,
carrying
yeah.
on.
Yeah.
So if it stays quite consistent, that's quite a good way of like tracking which sales are where.
Yeah, one of my cozy mystery series is getting really good sales. It's My Cat's Cat, which is set in a small town. And it's very similar to like the Cat Who books by Lillian Jackson Braun.
Oh, I don't know that
And
one.
so, oh, yeah, she's world famous. She's sold, millions of books. She just passed away a few years ago. She was very old. And her books were just really great murder mysteries.
Oh, right. I'll have to check those out. Murder mysteries are what you said just then, cozy mysteries. What does that mean?
Okay, so cozy mysteries are different from regular mysteries where, you've got the body, you don't see
Yeah.
the killing, and there's no bad language in it.
Right,
It
right.
it it took me a while to iron out all the kinks so I knew how to write a cozy mystery.
Right, okay.
Uh,
Have you
yeah,
read
so
Thursday Murder Club by Richard Osman?
yes, yes.
Yes, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I love that stuff.
Yeah, they're really good, those books. They're quite British. I think they're probably quite specific about the UK, but they're written so nicely. Yeah, I really, really enjoyed those books.
Oh, I
Um,
love UK books. I love them, and I love reading about the little towns and even the big cities and things.
which ones have you been reading that have sort of inspired you?
Oh gosh, I couldn't tell you because, okay, so I read between 2 and 6 books a week, so don't ask me because it's all.
Yeah,
All I can tell you is I love British murder mysteries and cozy mysteries. And
yeah, yeah. Oh, well, maybe we'll see if we can come to some recommendations later on. Now, you've got a couple of books in quite a few different genres. You've got, as you said, mentioned cozy mysteries. You've got the other books, which are
yeah.
sci-fi kind of fantasy as well. And then you've got some romance. You've even got some books which are in dystopian plus nonfiction. So you've
Mhm.
got lots of different genres that you write in. Now, do you ever struggle to switch between the two different voices that you need for all those different books? And have you got any tips for authors who are maybe struggling to find their voice at first?
I I don't ever have any trouble. I can go from science fiction to cozy mystery to, well, the dystopian that's the Last Dog series. There's only 2 books in that. But I don't have any trouble transitioning.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it has to do with the amount of books that I read. I'm not a big TV watcher, and I tell everybody in my newsletter, turn the TV off,
Right.
get a book in your hand.
Yeah. I guess that what about that advice though for people who want to get into screenwriting? Because obviously they might need to watch the TV if they want to follow you and get some of their books written into screenwritings.
Yeah, screenwriting is a whole totally different genre, different way of writing. In a novel, you can write, oh, the wallpaper and the furniture and all this other stuff. In a screenplay, well, think about it, okay? Adapting like a 400-page book down into a screenplay, you have no more than 120 pages, and producers would prefer no more than like 95. So you have to learn how to condense those things down and how to introduce your characters very succinctly, and it's a challenge, but there's an awful lot of books out there on the subject, and there's a lot of courses out there. So people can learn how to do that, but it's very frustrating when you start off and you have to, that's another thing. You have to find a specific critique group for that, because it's just like, if you're a poet, you don't want to go into a fiction writers group, you
Yeah.
know, and if you're a screenwriter, you don't want to go into a novel
Yeah.
writing group, because you'll get wrong information and it'll, I'm raising my hand, been there, done that.
You've talked a lot about critique groups. What advice do you have for people for finding one today? Because it sounds like you found your critique group maybe in the 80s. So have
Hmm.
you have you still got those critique groups that you work with today, and how did you find them?
Well, the one back in the 80s, it was a very large group, and the founders were elderly people. And unfortunately, when they passed away, the critique group floundered. Somebody tried to take it over, and it just, nobody cared. You know, the owners were gone. They didn't want to stay with the other people. So I started a critique group shortly after that. I think it was in the early 90s. And at first we met at different people's houses. And then that got to be a pain in the neck because it interrupts dinner and there's kids and dogs and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
And so what I ended up with, my group met at a restaurant. The first one was very noisy. That didn't work out. And so we finally, narrowed it down to a place where we could meet that had a side room and it was fairly quiet. And I mean, that worked out for like almost 25 years. And I just retired it not too long ago. But, people can find a critique group through either their university or a library, or just all kinds of different places, or you can create your own and be specific about who can join, what you're going to accomplish, and things like that. I don't suggest doing the handing out the pages. I suggest using Zoom or something else where you can upload pages, and even Facebook Messenger,
Yeah.
you can do video things there, and people can email their pages to each other and give them a specific length of time. You have to have your comments ready and back, in 3 weeks or a month or however often you're going to meet, so that's one of the best things to do.
Yeah. So it's about just keeping your network updated, like making sure you stay in contact with people, and
Mhm.
keep making help each other out a little bit if you do find these writers that want to get that help.
Yeah, and you need to be specific about, or you need to really hold their feet to the fire and say, look, you are committing to do this. and you need to do this. If you don't like this kind of a story, it doesn't make any difference. You still need to read it, because what you're going to do is you're going to look for character development, plotting, dialogue, things like that. So, you've got to set down the rules and, like I said, hold their feet to the fire. And one of the experiences that I had years ago had about 15 people in the group. So that was a lot of pages to read,
Yeah.
over a month's time. And there was this one guy that came to the group, and he only wanted his stuff critiqued. He didn't want to do anything else. So after the first time, I told him, it's like, if you're going to belong to this group, then you're going to read everybody else's pages and you're going to give them your 2 cents worth, and it better be good, it better be something that someone can actually use, not just
Yeah.
your opinion. Well, I don't like this, that doesn't do anybody any good. And he didn't come back. So,
You scared him off.
he didn't want to do the work. Yeah, he wanted, just to get his, feedback on his pages, but he didn't want to, bother with anybody else's. And it's like, nope, you have to put your foot down.
Yeah, sometimes you got to.
Yeah.
Now, alongside writing your books, you've also got your other business, which is Artistic Origins, which is where you offer other services to people. It's great if you're doing writing, you've got all this experience of writing, that you can pass on some of that experience to other people. So tell me about some of the services that you do, and also tell me a bit about why you started and how that's going.
Okay. Well, as I said earlier, Artistic Origins was my technical writing company, and I set that up because I was contracting for, a lot of different companies. And so I would write or edit manuals in the industry.
Yeah.
And I was very good at it, and I had a long career with it. And when I transitioned into creative writing, it was just a way to go, because I offer editing services. I will format someone's book so it looks really good. Because there's a lot of books out there that are just jumbled together, and, they've got like maybe 2 spaces for an indent, and just horrible. And I create custom scene breaks that goes along with the story or the cover or something. And if someone doesn't have a cover, then I've got a whole slew of people that I work with that design covers. And so that's editing, formatting, and then I also publish people's books. I'm not like one of those New York or London publishers. I'm one of those that, I charge you for the services, and I will even upload your files to Amazon if you don't know how to do that. So I try to offer as much as possible to get somebody get their book out there.
What's the, you've got with all those services, do you do them for all types of books, like fiction and nonfiction, or do you try and stick to one sort of genre?
Yes. No, just fiction and nonfiction. I don't do poetry because I know nothing at all about poetry. I've had people ask, and it's like, you're coming to the wrong person, because I don't believe in taking a project that I can't back up, with expertise. So all you poets, go somewhere else, because I can't do it. So what I have people do is send me a chapter or two of what they've written, so I can see, whether it's fiction or nonfiction, so I can see what it looks like and how much editing I feel that the book requires. And for nonfiction books, I always ask, are there tables? Are there charts? Are there images? I need to know all of that so I can give a quote on a project. I've discovered that my fees are so far below other people's fees. By thousands of dollars, that, I just want to get people's books out there for them. We're not doing it to, make a fortune.
So with your editing and cover design and things like that for your Artistic Origin business, do you work with nonfiction and fiction businesses, or do you specialize in one of them?
I work with both. For the nonfiction people, I always have a conversation about, what is included in their book. Do they have images? Do they have tables? Do they have, graphs? I need to know that, because a lot of that technical stuff is difficult to get through. And if
Yep.
they haven't set it up right, then it's going to be a jumbled mess. So, I know how to ask all the questions so I can give someone a quote, and I
Yep.
always have, whether it's fiction or nonfiction, I want people to send me the first couple of chapters so I can look and see, you know, is there a lot of editing here? Or, my God, is it beautiful? Every once in a while, you get something that, you don't even have to change a comma. It's really fabulous.
Yeah. Yeah. Brilliant. And you've actually written a few nonfiction books yourself, mostly around being a writer. So one of the ones that's really stood out to me was the Writer's Preparation Handbook. So that's literally about, if you don't know how to write at all, like how can you get started?
Yeah, that book can set you up so that you know what you're doing. You don't lose files. You keep all your research, in a certain place, because there's a lot of times where people, hunt around, they had something, they can't find it, and it's like, well, you know, and yeah, I kind of walk them through how to get started and the best ways to go about
Yeah.
doing any kind of writing.
And, and that book leads on to a course where you teach quite a similar
Yes,
topic.
it's
Yeah.
very small, very, the book is tiny. I'm trying to think, let's see, how many pages is it? Oh, I don't know how many pages. It's under 100 pages, you know,
Right.
so
Okay.
but it's jam-packed. I don't put a lot of fluff in the books, I don't write 10 pages, expounding on how wonderful things are and all that stuff. I just write the facts.
Yeah. That's good. And also saves you printing costs
Oh,
as well.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
There's another
Brilliant.
one, How to Format Word Docs Like a Pro, where I teach people how to set up their Microsoft Word and how to do the, certain things in there so that their documents look really good.
So do you do all your formatting in Word? You don't use any of the other online tools?
No, I do all my writing in Word, and then I upload the Word to a program called Vellum. That's what I use for my
Yep.
publishing, and straighten out any formatting mess ups that comes through with the uploading. But yeah, it's all pretty easy using Vellum.
Good. Great. Well, thank you so much for giving us your time today. I think we've got quite a lot out of like learning about the backgrounds of your books and especially the way you do your writing styles and like working across different genres. What are your plans next for your book series?
Well, right now I am working on the 5th bonded billionaire shapeshifter book, and I'm hoping to have that thing finished. I don't know. It was supposed to be finished a couple of months ago and then it got bumped. But I'm hoping to have that thing finished, in the middle of October, and then, get it edited. And yes, I have an editor. Get it
Yeah.
edited and then make those changes and then have a proofreader look at it, because I believe that you need both an editor to do the heavy lifting and then the proofreader to go, aha, look at that. You forgot to do that. They're both, fabulous resources.
Are you going to be do
Oh,
self-publishing that
yeah.
book as well?
Yeah.
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 Amazing. Great. Well, I can't wait for that to come out. I have to have a look at it when it comes out. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I think it's been a really great call. I think loads of people got loads out of it. So yeah, if people want to get in touch with you, where's the best place for them to contact you or follow you?
Well, I'm on Facebook, of course, and then they can find me on my website, degreenfield.com. And I should tell people I'm trying to transition away from the last name Ireland because I've been divorced from him for decades, and then he just passed away a few years ago. So it's like, oh, okay, I don't need that name
Okay.
anymore. So I'm
Yeah.
going back to my family name, which is Greenfield, my maiden name.
Great. No, sounds good. Well, thank you for spending some time chatting with me today, and we'll chat
All
again soon.
right. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for tuning into the Publishing Performance Podcast. I really hope you found today's episode inspiring. I love chatting to authors, writers, and people in the publishing world. Now, just before we wrap up, let me tell you about Publishing Performance, the #1 platform for authors who want to increase Amazon book sales, but are not really sure where to start. Now, this show is all about helping you to sell more books. And if you're looking to boost your publishing game and to maximise your book's potential on Amazon, then Publishing Performance is designed to help authors just like you to grow your readership and to reach a much wider audience. Now, I know that Amazon ads can be slightly complicated, which is why Publishing Performance is like having a personalised ad account manager to create your ad campaigns, to choose your best keywords, and to make adjustments in real time. Now, if you're investing in ads, you really want to make sure that your investment is being used effectively, and Publishing Performance does just that. It aims to make your budget go further, improve your organic rank, and target keywords more effectively. Just go to publishingperformance.com to get started with Amazon ads for just $1.